Hi everyone, I hope everyone is in. My name is Hari from the Asia Pacific University. Thank you so much for streaming in and welcome to our Cybersecurity in the Era of Connected Data webinar. We really appreciate the time taken for all of you to join in at this time, and we ensure you that this will be a worth it 1 hour for all of you. We've got an exciting topic waiting for you and we can't wait to share it with you. We've got today in for our session and it's none other than Dr. Kalai Anand. Dr. Anand is our Senior Digital Technology Specialist at Asia Pacific University. And not only that, Dr. Anand is also our Cybersecurity Engineer, a Microsoft Certified Trainer, and an AWS Educate Cloud Ambassador. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Anand into our session to take it further. Dr. Anand, over to you.
Thank you, Hari, for the introduction. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session titled Cybersecurity in the Era of Connected Data. My name is Anand, and I'll be moderating today's webcast. During the webcast, if you have any questions, please do enter them into the chat window, and we will have selected questions answered during the question and answer session. To begin with, think about this. What was the last piece of technology that you ever purchased that did not have any sort of connectivity mechanism, be it Wi-Fi or Bluetooth? I'm sure the answer is no. Practically all devices today you purchase, be it whether a smartwatch, a refrigerator, or even car, have some sort of connectivity facility with the internet. Now, to put you in perspective, now, before I introduce the panel of members, let me put you in perspective. Now, it is estimated that more than 50 billion internet connected devices by 2025 will be available as predicted by Gartner. Now, this whole thing about IoT is the network of connected devices, or also known as smart devices, which is going to literally give us so much of convenience with the flexibility to connect any device anytime from anywhere. Think about this. But however, many of these implementation have prioritized much easier and faster deployments over security. Now, the things which I'm referring to, be it whether it's a watch or be it whether it's a refrigerator, comes in all shapes and sizes. This includes even automobiles or even a blood sugar monitor or even a connected home. Now, the connected world does not come without its challenges. Threats to data security, physical security, security of the devices, regulations, privacy, encryption, authentication, a host of a lot of issues needs to be addressed before we can even be part of this connected world. Now, to take you and dive further, I'm going to introduce our distinguished panelists. I have Aditya Nair, Innovation Engineer from Rochester. Welcome, Aditya. Followed
Hi,
by
Anand.
Dr. Vinesha, Cybersecurity Engineer from the Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Anand. Happy to be here.
Thank you, thank you. It's really glad to have both of y'all here. So to both of y'all, and we're going to have an interactive session over here. And Adi, I have the first question for you. You ready?
Yes,
Now,
shoot.
I have been doing a lot of research and reading a lot of reports published by reputable agencies, and I have these questions for you. Now, the adoption of IoT in becoming the growth factor in many industries is set to grow at a pace which is unprecedented. Now, how far has IoT impacted the commercial sector?
Okay, very interesting question, Anand. So let me try and break it down and answer it as simply as possible. Let me start off with an example. So I'm sure all of you are aware of a shoe company called Nike, right? So back in 2010, 2011, just as IoT was becoming pretty mainstream. So what you need to understand is IoT is not a new concept. IoT, the concept of IoT at least was founded 1999, 2000, but the hardware resources were very expensive to implement and build. Internet was not great, bandwidth was not great, so it was more of a concept than an actual theoretical practice. Then the iPhone came in 2007, more and more phones became smart and internet improved. That's when Netflix went online. There's an entire host of changes that happened. Now, which actually took IoT mainstream and made it almost, I would say, a household subject is this. So back in 2010, 2011, Nike again, very popular multi-billion-dollar company, facing a bit of a drop in sales, because how many pairs of shoes can a person own? And Nike shoes are designed to last. So 5, 6, more than that, people are not going to buy. So Nike had to do something interesting and innovative to refresh and renew the interest in sales of their shoes. So they were approached by a group of computer engineers from a company called Computer Associates, who said, hey, why don't you embed this little chip into your shoe? As a wearer, you don't even notice it's there. It makes no difference to you. There's no weight difference. There's no hardness difference, nothing. To you, it's exactly a regular, normal running shoe, sports shoe, whatever you're using it for. But what did this particular chip do? It had two functions. One, it would do a GPS track and it would tell you how many kilometers you ran or exercised or whatever it is you did on this particular pair of shoes. Very simple implementation. From there, it of course advanced to much more advanced functionality. You had your posture monitor, your calories burnt, and all of that. But this was the first real live implementation of IoT. It was a hit. Immediately, a lot of people started buying these Nike shoes. If you watch football, you would see that at the end of the match, they'll tell you this particular footballer ran so many kilometers, they did so many passes, all of that. All of that was because of this first implementation of shoes. So this goes to show how much of an impact IoT can have on the commercial sector. I'll give you another example. Now let's take this and implement it to a much larger scale, to a building. Apple has built a new campus, right? This campus is 100% powered by IoT. So this is one of the most efficient buildings in the world. You look at the roof over there, it is all solar panels, and this building generates all of its own current from the solar panels. In fact, this building is so efficient that it produces excess power. Apple has even formed its own power company, and it sells that excess power to neighboring households and neighborhoods. This is also possible because of IoT. They have sensors in every single room that manage the efficiency of power usage. The moment someone leaves the room, the lights go off, the air conditioner goes off, all of that. So commercially, imagine this on every single factory building and every single office building around the world. It can have a huge impact. So Anand, to cut short what I answered or summarize what I answered, IoT is going to have a very, very huge impact on the commercial sector because it's going to streamline and make everything more efficient and easier to manage and maintain.
Thank you, Adi, for that question. I think I've lost you. Yeah, so thank you, Adi, for that answer. That was a really great insight to see that there's a huge potential of IoT in the commercial sector. So over to you, Vinisha. Now, I would like to throw this question at you as to now, how big of a problem will a lack of security with connected devices be?
Thank you, Anand, for the interesting question. Now, to make it simple, a simple answer will be it's going to be a big problem. It's going to be huge, right? So I'm not going to bore you with the stats or the statistics. Let me give you an example. Now, the most common IoT device that we can look at today is a smartwatch. So some of us have smartwatch, some of us don't. Now imagine this. You strap on your smartwatch in the morning and then you go for your morning run. And then you come back home and you take your smartphone. Chances are your data is already recorded in your smartphone. What kind of data is being recorded by your smartwatch? Now, your heart rate, your pulse, your oxygen level, even your carbon dioxide level. Now, how did that happen from your smartwatch when you're running and to your smartphone where your data is on your smartphone? Now, what is really happening at the back is when you strap on your smartwatch, your data is being recorded by your smartwatch and your data is being stored on a cloud storage, right? Managed by a cloud service provider. So when you access this data from your smartphone, your data is there. Now, one may argue and say that, why does my data has to be on a cloud service provider? Why can't it be in an internal storage? Now, here's the thing. You're using your smartwatch on a daily basis. Your data is increasing day by day. Chances are your internal storage may not be able to store enough data. So it is stored on a cloud service provider. So there you go. Then we also have another example. Let me give you another example. Once you're done with your workout and then you head on to work, you get into your car and then you access your GPS, you use Waze. So you obviously going to choose the fastest route to your office, right? The least traffic and so on. So your data is still being recorded. So what is the problem here? Now, the first issue or risk we say in IoT device is the invasion of privacy. Now, how do that happen? Imagine if you have a smart fridge. We all know what's a smart fridge, right? You can access what is in your fridge from your smartphone. So shopping becomes easier now. While you're shopping, just switch on your smartphone and then you can see what is in your fridge. So what do you need to purchase and so on. And as you can see, the smart fridge comes with a screen as well. And this way you can put your to-do list, you can get your husband to look at the task today and this and that. So all these are again recorded in the cloud storage. Now, how can one leverage the use of this data? Imagine this. You have that smart fridge and after a week you receive an email or an advertisement saying that here you go. This is a healthy diet plan or healthy living plan. You receive advertisements, such advertisement. Now, how that became possible is that on the cloud service provider, at the end of the cloud service provider, all they need is a data analytic tool. So it analyzes your data, whatever is stored in the cloud storage, meaning to say what you have in your fridge and all, and they can make conclusions on how good or how bad are your eating habits. And with that, you will get advertisements on how to improve your lifestyle. Now that seems fine, but what happens if you're about to get a health insurance for yourself? Now, when you want to purchase, let's say, a health insurance, you go to an insurance agent. Now, what happens if the insurance company looked at your living habits, your eating style? Let's say you're eating, you're what, feeding on sugary substance every day. So the chances are they already know that you might you might be at risk of being a diabetic patient later on. So this information is going to jeopardize your chances on getting a proper health benefit or a health premium. So this is what we call invasion of privacy here. Now, the second thing, when we look at what are the risks, is you getting your device compromised. Now, how does this happen? Now, imagine if you're going to ask yourself this question, do I have a smart home? Do I have a smart network at home today? Now, just ask yourself this three questions. Do you have a Wi-Fi connection at home? Do you have a smartphone which is connected to the Wi-Fi network? Do you have a smart TV? Or even do you have a tablet? Now, if you have all these things, chances are you already have a simple smart home network. So how can attackers leverage on this? Now, we all have a router, right, at our home. How many of us have logged into our routers? How many of us have upgraded our firmware? Now, attackers can look at a simple device in your home network and leverage on that. They can launch attacks on a simple device such as a router. Now, once they compromise that router, they would have gotten access to your entire home network. So with that access, leveraging the use and the privileges of access, they would now be able to control your smart TV, your audio system, or even say your smart light bulb. So we have patches. Devices have vulnerabilities, right? So the only way that one of the way that we could overcome that is by downloading patches from the devices. But again, with a simple device like your router, how many of us have really logged into our router? If you haven't, the bigger chances is your router is being operated on an administrator password and username. If that were to be the case, now you have a very open network, right? So, and fixing patches from router requires you to upgrade your firmware. How many of us are really doing that? Now, then it comes to a question here. Why do this hacker or attacker would want to compromise your system? If you are a targeted theft, it's way easier to break into your home. Break into your home, gain access into your home, and steal whatever property that you have. But the thing here is we have to look at the motivation of the hacker itself. Now, they are not interested in whatever you have in your home. They are probably interested in what you have in your smartphone or your computer. With that being said, what are they interested in? Probably cryptocurrencies. Secondly, they would probably hack into your network because they simply want to launch a DDoS attack onto your network. So what's a DDoS attack? Denial of service. So when a hacker gains access into your home network and launches a DDoS attack, now when you come back home with all your smart devices connected to the internet, you may not be able to access them. You can't switch on your TV, you can't use the Wi-Fi network. So if you were to ask me the risks, I can go on and on and on. The list for security risks in IT is a huge, long one. So I'm not going to bore you. Back to you, Anand.
Thank you, Vinisha. Looks like I will have to give up some of my devices then. But I mean, giving up is one, but we have a challenge here, which is the convenience. So Aditya, I have this question for you. Convenience versus security is always a debatable point for emerging technologies like connected devices, cloud computing. Now, how is the world of connected devices going to handle this? Now, we are debating between convenience and security over here. Over to you, Aditya.
Thank you, Anand. Okay, straight off the bat, I want to say when it comes to any network, it doesn't have to be only IoT or a cloud-based network. Any network, you can't have 100% convenience and 100% security at the same time. So there will have to be a compromise that comes in when you start talking about security implemented on any device. A very, very basic example is You have to enforce two-factor authentication, where you have to start a second step. You have to enter a unique second code every single time you log in. That itself is a small form of inconvenience instead of you just entering your password and logging in. Now back to the question. So the entire point of IoT, I would say, is convenience. That's what makes it so popular. It makes things super simple for people. You can turn your fan off from your smartphone. You can turn the lights off in your house from your smartphone. All of this makes it very, very appealing to consumers who purchase IoT. I'll give another example. I think Vinisha dwelled a little bit on a smart fridge, but I'll give you an example of a working smart fridge that Panasonic made. For an example of why IoT is becoming so convenient and why it's so popular, before I start talking about how it can have security aspects. So all this fridge does is, it's in your kitchen. Let's say you're sitting on your couch watching the football match. You run out of Coke. You want a fresh can of Coke. Take out your smartphone, open up the app, press a button. The fridge will leave the kitchen, come rolling towards you, come to where you are sitting. You can open it up, take out your can of Coke, close the fridge, and the fridge will go back. Now, this is 100% convenience for you. And who's going to think about actually securing that gateway communication between you and the fridge? Because it's a fridge. What confidential information can your fridge have? But this is wherein lies the entire problem. This entire architecture, if you look at the image that Anand showed you all on the screen, that's how complicated this entire back-end architecture of IoT is, that gives you all of the convenience and comfort that you enjoy. Now, securing this is essentially the challenge, because you have to compromise a little bit of the convenience that IoT devices offer right now to improve the security. Because as Vinisha said, if you have one compromised device on your network, your entire home network can be compromised by a hacker. In the middle of the night, he can turn on your lights, he can turn off your air conditioning, he can change the temperature in your house, whatever it may be. So if you ask me, I would be willing to sacrifice a little bit of that convenience for security, because it is definitely worth it and definitely needed. Thank you, Anand. I think that should answer it.
Thank you, Adi. So looks like there's a bit of balance to do here. Either you want to enjoy the convenience of connected world, or worry about what's happening in the security.
But that's what I said. You cannot have 100% convenience and 100% security at the same time. It just does not work.
Okay, but I think for organizations, over to you, Vinisha. Now, organizations are adopting IoT at an unprecedented, speed. So, in your view, are organizations actually actively investing in monitoring and mitigating the risk associated with these connected technologies?
Thank you, Anand. Now, before I get to that question, I have something I want to add up on Aditya's answers just now. Now, building on what he said, it is true, IoT devices being convenient. Now, we have to look at a triad here. There's a triad between convenience, cost, and security. There's no device that you can have maximum convenience without jeopardizing the costing and the security implementation. At the same time, you can't have something too secure and convenient at the same time. Now, going back to your questions about whether or not organizations are actively, was it monitoring and mitigating, you said? Yep.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say actively. Actively seem to be a bigger word here, because what is happening right now is companies are investing their time and effort in leveraging the use of IoT devices in making it convenient enough to push it to the market rush. So that's what is happening. Now, a little over 28% of companies that are actually investing in the security implementations of IoT devices, it's usually, what happens is the company usually sidestep the security fundamentals in order to push the convenience and the efficiencies of these IoT devices. Now, let me give you an example. A smart device such as a light bulb. Now, light bulb, you can control your light bulb, the dimming your light bulbs through your smartphone, right? But who would have thought to include security implementations in a light bulb? Now, if that is the case here, how much would one be willing to pay for a light bulb. So that is the case here. Now we have patches. So whatever devices that are out there now, it is vulnerable to malware, uh, shell scripts, and being hacked and so on. But the question here is, there are patches. But even with these patches, these IoT devices are still vulnerable. So I wouldn't say, coming back to the question, I wouldn't say they're actively. We're still at a growing pace here in terms of securing IoT devices. So I would say that companies should make the key issue in deciding what kind of IoT devices they were to implement in their network, and instead focus on the configuration, firewalls, the settings and the software and the system, so on, when implementing these IoT devices in their network.
Thank you. Thank you, Venetia. Now, Adi, I have this concern. Now, a lot of organizations who are adopting IoT now, IT may not be their core business. IT may not be their core business, but IT is an enabler for their business. So when such organizations tend to outsource their IT departments, will this be a hurdle or a challenge in implementing security for connected technologies efficiently in such companies?
Okay, interesting question, Anand. I think that would be a lot to do with the management of that organization and that company. So what you need to understand is when you outsource a certain part of your project or part of your product to a third-party vendor, you need to set up secure communication channels between you and that vendor. I'll give you a very simple example. So there's a big plane manufacturer called Airbus. I'm sure all of us know Airbus. Now, Airbus, of course, does not manufacture all of their components. They have third-party vendors who manufacture their components for them, right? So what happens is they set up a secure VPN channel to communicate with their vendors to send source code, information for design specifications, and all of that, right? Now, what happens is Airbus by itself is super secure, but there's a Chinese plane manufacturer that wants to get its plane certified for international and commercial flight. It's supposed to compete with the A320, which is Airbus's flagship best-selling model. So what they did is they wanted to get the paperwork and documentation that Airbus used to get certification and validity for that Airbus. So they couldn't hack into Airbus. Airbus was too secure, or they just didn't find the vulnerability in time. So what they did is they hacked into the third-party service provider for Airbus. And because that connection is already encrypted, they managed to hack into those servers. And using that encrypted connection between Airbus and its vendor, they were able to hack into Airbus and steal that information. This is a similar problem that's going to arise when you start talking about outsourcing your manufacturing capability to third-party vendors. It all goes in how securely you implement the standards that they follow, because what's going to stop your third-party outsourced vendor from installing a backdoor onto your product before it ships out? So all of the standards that you employ when it comes to quality control, stringent checks, constantly reviewing the source code and all of that will play a very, very big role when you start talking about outsourcing to an IT department. But ultimately, all of this will happen because it definitely becomes cheaper when you start going into a much larger scale production of IoT devices. It becomes cheaper to outsource certain aspects. So what a lot of these vendors do is they assemble components. So the entire problem with the United States and Huawei was this, because the United States was using a lot of the 5G chips manufactured by Huawei. Now, how are you supposed to be 100% certain that they have not embedded a small piece of hardware that spies on every single thing that you do? So this is definitely be a big problem for connected technologies. It all depends on the best quality practices that you implement. So I'll give you another example. Your iPhone is manufactured in China, but when you take it out of the box, you still trust that it is 100% perfect. There's nothing installed that's going to spy on you. It's because you trust the standards and protocols that Apple have put in place to secure that phone for you. Similarly, with IoT, it will depend varying on the company, because you have big boys who have a lot of resources who can implement all of these stringent protocols. But as I would say the boon and the bane with IoT is anybody and everybody can be building and implementing IoT devices. So this is where the problem comes, because you don't know if they are actually implementing the same stringent protocols to secure the device. So outsourcing is definitely a problem.
Thanks, Adi. But Adi, I want to just ask you this thing. Are these? I just want to know if, even for the benefit of the audience, are these outsourced organizations they're very specialized in terms of securing the connected world, or are they just more on the general cybersecurity sort of mechanisms protecting common scenarios? How many percent of the organization IT outsourced IT organization roughly are very have expertise and in this area?
Okay, so it depends on what you're talking about, which service in particular you're outsourcing, because you can outsource every single aspect of your product. All you have to do is just come up with the idea of your product, and you can ask someone else to build every single aspect of it, whether it's the chip that goes into it, whether it's the OS, whether it's the wires, whether it's the outer casing for it. Every single thing can be outsourced. Now the question you're coming to is, which part are you specifying to when you start talking about outsourcing? Now let's talk about cybersecurity for IoT. There are no standards in place. So actually, right now, there's no one person who's an expert. So even if you do outsource it, they are not really going to be an expert for securing the IoT devices, because there are no standards in place. There's no organization or no centralized body that has created standards for an outsourced company to follow, or for even an in-house manufacturing company to follow and implement into those products. So that's basically it, Anand. There is no standards for the development of cybersecurity protocols for IoT.
So now the challenge is establishing a standards.
Yes.
Okay. So, Dr. Vinesha, I think we have heard about in terms of lack of standards, convenience versus security. Now, with that, I'm sure there are some methods which we can which we can put in place for the benefit of all of us. So, I would like to have your perspective on what are some of the methods you would recommend, being in this position as a cybersecurity engineer, to mitigate connected devices from being used at least as a point of attack?
Thanks, Kalai. At the very moment, since that we don't have any policies or standard in place in securing these IoT devices, and as what Aditya mentioned, there's a lot of third-party systems and devices that we have to deal with. So at the very moment, I would think that definitely isolation. Now, what is isolation? So the very main thing here is that when you have a network with connected devices, you should first isolate your critical assets, which means, let me give you an example. If we're talking about a smart building here, we have the key card access as well, right? So what happens is the critical asset we're talking here is the key card access, where it allows whoever to get into the building. So these kind of crucial assets should be on their own network. Or else, there was a, let me give you an example. There's a case, I think over a year ago, where an attacker managed to hack into a casino's database, okay, which was on a network, and only compromising the thermostat on the fish tank in the casino. So that is a good example, because you see, in that case, the thermostat and the casino's database was on the same network. So all the hacker has to do was compromise the thermostat, and that's it. It got onto the network, and it went through and compromised the casino's database as well. So with that said, one of the methods in mitigating this would be first isolation. So you connect all the critical assets into a single network, in its own network. You don't, what is this called? You don't allow them to reconnect to the network. You VLAN them out and add another thing on the lake of firewalls. Leverage on the use of firewalls. Leverage on your security configurations.
Okay, pretty interesting insight. So I think there's a lot to do in order for us to mitigate, and I believe we need to do assessment in terms of the scale of the attack and the type of damage which has actually happened.
Definitely, we have to do risk assessments, vulnerability assessments. Those are the other options that we can do at the very moment.
So that means cybersecurity engineers have a lot of scope in this area. Am I right?
Yep, you're right.
Okay. So all aspiring cybersecurity engineers, you guys should be taking up this challenge. Okay.
Absolutely.
Back to you, Adi. Now, Adi, I've worked with you in a variety of projects as well. So now I want to hear from you in terms of challenges. Now, what are the challenges faced in terms of secure deployment of connected technologies? Deploying is one, but secure deployment of connected technologies, be it whether from the hardware, software, policies, or the entire infrastructure itself. Over to you, Adi.
Okay, thank you for the question, Anand. So, uh, one of the biggest or most appealing factors of IoT right now is that it's very, very cheap to build and implement. I'll give you an example. This chair that I'm sitting on, if I want to make it into a smart chair, all I have to program is every 30 minutes it needs to remind me to get up and walk around. To implement that entire technology, probably take me no more than $2.5 to $3, right? This is where the entire problem starts, because you don't have only the big companies with big development teams and almost unlimited resources to start building and implementing IoT technologies. Anybody with an idea can just order parts on Alibaba, AliExpress from China. You can even specify what you want. You have manufacturers who will make to your specifications and ship it to you. Using those components, you can build your IoT device and push it out into the market without a entire backend team to support that product. So let's give you an example. So you have Apple, you have Microsoft, they launch your Mac OS, your latest Mac OS, you have Windows. If there's a bug found, they launch patches. They have an entire team to fix that bug and release a patch. They have a network of servers to basically handle the traffic and download the patches to devices around the world. Now, if you have a small IoT based company that has a pretty cool IoT solution, let's say there's something called the smart salt shaker. All it does is it measures your daily salt intake. Now, who's actually going to think about the cybersecurity aspects of a salt shaker? Are they going to be employing a team to handle entire software patches? No. If a bug is found, what do all of these small time manufacturers do? They just launch and release a newer version of their product. But all of the older products are still in the market with that existing vulnerability with no backend support to fix that software patch. Herein lies one of the biggest challenges for secure deployment of IoT. And also, as I mentioned earlier, there's no centralized body to govern and give you standards for development of your IoT device. In fact, just today it happened a couple of hours ago. The NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technologies, based in the United States, has finally released some cybersecurity guidelines for the development of IoT devices. So it is a step in the right direction. It's slowly happening, but right now the biggest challenges are, one, anybody and everyone can do it, and there's no standards. So since there's no standards, people are not forced to follow certain protocols while building and developing IoT devices. So there's no encryption of data, nothing. So Anand, I think that should answer your question.
I still remember, Adi, some of the deployments which we used to do. I mean, patches after patches, and we still have the same issue coming up.
Yeah.
So that's really a challenge. So now we have some interesting questions coming up from the audience. But before we take up the questions, I have one last question for Dr. Vinesha. Now, Vinesha, you have been working with a lot of vendors in terms of experimenting their IoT products. And do you think any of these vendors who you have worked for, at least, actually design and build connected devices with their own backdoors built in so that they can kind of snoop in and see what's happening?
Thank you, Kalai. Absolutely. Some of them actually do have backdoors in it. It's coming back to the question here. What are you purchasing? What exactly are you purchasing and who are you purchasing it from? If you're purchasing it from a legitimate vendor, then chances are there wouldn't be a backdoor there, because these companies, they won't risk being sued for billions of dollars by having a backdoor in their devices. But then again, when you talk about you saving a couple of dollars on a specific device, just to save that couple of dollars there, you purchase a copy grade device, which is cheaper. Now, the bigger chances there is it's probably loaded with a preloaded backdoor into their devices, and they would be snooping your data once you're using that device. But that's just copy graded devices. Now, when we look at backdoor, what is a backdoor really is? Now, a backdoor is to enable a hacker to actually, or a hacker or an attacker to snoop through the device. That means your device is being compromised. Now, how does this happen? Now, it could be as easy as you downloading something into the device, say your smart TV, you watch a smart TV, you connect to the internet, you're probably downloading movies and so on. Chances are there would be already a malware downloaded into your device. Now, with that said, your device is compromised. So attacker can still snoop through those devices, right? So the key thing here is copy graded devices from these vendors. It's you can't trust these devices, right? And that's backdoor. Now, what about someone who wants to hack into those devices? I mean, how long does it take? You can spend 5 minutes on the internet, search for how do I hack, say, a thermostat, or how do I hack a router, and you're definitely going to get something out of it. So backdoor, no backdoor, it's extremely easy to compromise the technology today. Let me give you another example. For example, this particular device called Furby Connect, right? So this device talks and speaks to your toddler, right? So what happens is there are ways, even in fact, if you go Google it now, you go Google and search for how to hack a Furby Connect, it's extremely easy to hack into the device. So parents, when you're purchasing your Furby Connect, if it's compromised, or say you've purchased it from a copy graded vendor, what's going to happen? A hacker or an attacker is probably talking to your toddlers. And for all you know, it could be a pedophile. Back to you, Arvind.
So, Vinisha, thank you very much. So, now for someone like me, and I believe even many people out there, we love tech so much, even while sleeping, I wear my smartwatch. So I think looks like I'm also vulnerable, but doesn't matter. I think I believed being in this field, we know how to take care of ourselves, even Adi and Vinisha as well. So thank you very much, Adi and Dr. Vinisha. So we have some interesting questions coming from our viewers. Okay, now I'm going to pick those questions. Now, one of the question is from the viewer is, how do we protect ourselves from cyber attack from a consumer perspective? This is generic consumer. Aditya, you want to pick this question?
Okay, so as a generic consumer, there are two things you can do. I think one was already covered by Vinisha. If you absolutely must implement some sort of IoT in your house, make sure everything is on its own isolated network. That way, even if you do have, I would say, a bug or a flaw or vulnerability in one of those devices, it does not impact the rest of the functionality of your house. That is one. Two, make sure you buy, even though it might be a little more expensive, always buy the product from the more well-known and bigger brand, because they are definitely more trustworthy and they have already implemented some sort of cybersecurity practices into that device. Sometimes you do get cheaper China-made devices that probably offer the same functionality as probably a brand from a bigger device. I mean, a device from a bigger brand, but you have no idea what's happening in the back end because you're paying that premium for security. Again, I'm not saying 100% it's secure, but as a regular consumer, these are some of the things that you can implement while purchasing an IoT device.
So thank you very much, Adi, for that insight. Now, the next question we have from a viewer, I believe it's very much from a policy perspective of it. This question comes from Ninga Lakshmi. So now, given the question was, given this risk, how do we decide on the right risk management or mitigation framework, and how much should we be spending on cybersecurity? So, Vinisha, you have some insights on this?
Yep. Okay. When you're speaking about risks or risk management software, so let's say you're talking about vulnerability software, first thing you got to know is what are you looking for? Now, there's a lot of different tools and softwares available. Now, these tools offer different functionality. Okay, we have softwares which can not only perform risk management or vulnerability assessment, they also give you the financial, what do you call it, impact, right? So there are many different tools out there that you can leverage on depending on what do you want. Now, going into how much are you spending, again comes to the tools. Now, there are also a lot of different risk assessment softwares out there. Different functionality comes with a different price there. So really, you got to go back into what are you looking for, what are you trying to mitigate, how severe, and what are you scanning for? Is it going to be hosts or networks or local hosts? So these are the aspects that you have to look for before selecting the right risk assessment tool.
So, Vinisha, so looks like there's quite a bit of work organization have to do in terms of coming up with this framework, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
Yep, you're absolutely right.
So
That's
I
why
think
we have the cybersecurity experts there.
yeah. So people like Adi and myself and Vinisha, for the benefit of the viewers, the frameworks are not very easy because it varies by organization requirements. Okay, so we have another interesting question from Siti Sakina. I will just put the question, summarize the question. So the question is about, she had this experience of buying a second-hand PC, or rather a refurbished PC, and the question is it safe to use this refurbished PC to perform sensitive operations like online banking or shopping or whatever which is sensitive? So how do we actually detect it? Now, this seems to be a very technical question in terms of using some tools. So, Adi, you have I
I'm
believe
going
you
to
had a
say,
similar case sometime
no,
back. Oh, Vinisha, you want to take this question?
no, I'm going to take the first half of the question and let Adi do
Okay.
the detection. Okay.
So,
Okay. First thing I'm going to
Sorry.
say, what is it? Okay. First
Sorry,
thing I'm going
Anand,
to
I
say,
cut out. Did you direct the question at me? Sorry, I
yeah, so
disconnected
I
for a
was
bit.
putting this question to both Adi and Vinisha. So the question was, Siti Sakina, our one of them who asked the question, she bought a refurbished PC and has doubts whether this PC is safe for performing operations like online banking and shopping. And she would like to know whether there's any way of removing this, if there's any bug or sort of rootkit informed. So Vinesha can probably take first half of the question, and Adi can take the second half because this is something which everyone is facing. So
okay,
Vinisha,
yes, thanks, Kali. Sorry. Now, first thing I'm going to say, Siti Sakina, you're not safe. Okay, because you have no idea. You purchase it on through Facebook, right? So you have no idea whether the initial owner, he could be a hacker for all I know. Okay, he probably planted something into your PC. Now that goes the same if you're purchasing something off Lazada. Say you want to purchase a MacBook or a laptop, purchase it from the right vendor. Purchasing it over Shopee and Lazada could also be like, for example, let me give you this example. Say I want to sell a laptop, right? It's brand new. I would purchase it from the right vendor first, and I could already inject a malware or a Trojan into that PC and then sell it over on Shopee. And you could be my intended buyer. So once you use that particular device, I'm able to look and snoop through your PC, and I am able to do command and control on your PC. And when you say formatting it, um, for reformatting it may not completely remove the entire problem or solve your problem, because as you know, when you delete anything or you reformat your PC, your hard disk is still there. Nothing is truly deleted unless it is replaced. Unless your data is all replaced, only then you can be secure that it's deleted. Plus, we have Slack space and all, where hackers would hide their malware codes into the Slack space as well. So now I'm going to pass it over to Adil. Let him give you your advice on this.
So I think, Vinisha, answered most of it. I was going to say the only option, see, rootkits are notoriously difficult to get rid of. The only way to actually detect a rootkit is probably to check your outbound TCP/IP packets of information to see what connections your computer is making. But the most recommended course of action would be, yes, reformatting your hard disk and reinstalling your entire operating system. But that is not guaranteed. And second, you're not focusing on the other issue at hand. You bought a PC from someone else. How do you know there's no hardware-based backdoor installed onto your PC? Now that becomes even harder because as much as you your reformat, reinstall your OS, that hardware chip is still going to be in your PC. So you should definitely be wary. I would say that much.
Let me add on to something.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Aditya was saying the hardware, right? Hardware. Now, can you imagine if the laptop that you've purchased had a built-in hardware keylogger on the laptop itself? And how are you going to remove that? It's the hardware embedded into your laptop. So every key that you type in is going to be recorded by the attacker. And some of these hardware devices comes with even its own Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chipset, where the hacker could be nearby you and connect to the keylogger, and he could see everything that you're typing in, including your bank details, your username and passwords, and so on. So, City, you're not safe. My advice would be burn the laptop.
Get a new one. Okay, so we have a next question coming in from Musa. He is a student, so I think it is important we look at this now. As a cybersecurity student, now what areas should a student consider when they want to pursue a career in this field? Okay, because however, he mentioned he's very passionate about pen testing, but I think there's a lot of other areas besides pen testing. So probably we can give some insights for the benefit of our student community, who's going to be the next generation of upcoming cybersecurity engineers. Over to you, Adi.
I think I'll leave this question to Vinisha because she's actually teaching her students every day about cybersecurity.
Okay, Vinisha, then over to you then.
Okay, thanks, Adi and Anand. Now, Musa, I would say that your question was, when is the right time, is it, to choose to pursue a career on cybersecurity? Now, I'm going to say that if you're a student in cybersecurity, that's good for you. Now, what I would advise you is that first take on the journey, be open, okay? Because in the cybersecurity field, we have many, many different areas, and you may or may not know which area are you interested in unless you try them. So take your time, explore all the options. It could be network, it could be database, it could be web application, it could be any field at all. But do not restrict yourself at the very beginning because you may not know what is there for you. So my suggestion would be, if you're in a cybersecurity degree, go on, take it as it comes, and try different areas of it. It would be a good idea as well if you would take up some certifications to improve your skills. If you're taking a degree, obviously it's offering you the basic requirement and qualification for you to venture on cybersecurity. But in today's world, having yourself certified is also important, because when you look at certification, it doesn't just build up on your theory and your knowledge in cybersecurity anymore. It goes into practicality, actually playing with tools, actually launching attacks, actually patching up a system. So when you play with this kind of tools, do not limit yourself in specific area. Try them all, because you're still young, you're still a student. Try them all, and then you will be able to find your niche area. So that's my advice to you, Musa.
So now, thanks, Vinisha, for the insight. I'm sure being a cybersecurity trainer, you have seen a lot of students who is passionate about these areas. But this message is to all students out there. This is a fantastic career. Get into it. Try it. You're going to enjoy it. Now, I think I can take one more question. This is from one of our audience by the name of Brian Ho. So his question is, how do we isolate, for example, a smart TV in his own network? I believe he has a smart TV in his house, so he wants to know how do we isolate. So I think Adi,
Yep.
being in this field, you can probably provide some insights.
Okay, so Brian, if you actually go into your router, your Wi-Fi router settings, it gives you an option to create multiple networks off of that one single router. So based on that, you can, using your router, you can create 3 to 4 different networks. And using those networks, you can put your IoT devices on different networks. That is how you create a very basic example of an isolated network for a particular device. So it has to do with your Wi-Fi router settings. You can, in fact, what I do, in fact, in my house is, if I have guests coming over, I don't give them my main Wi-Fi network password. I have a specific network for guest access. So even if they do something, it's on its own isolated networks. They can't really do much on my network with the password and credentials that they have.
Okay. You have something to say, Ganesha?
Yeah, I got something to say. No, for this session, I feel that, the take home message for all our viewers here is, first thing first, you have a network at home, you have a router at home, and I can bet you that you may never. I think you never sign into your router at all prior to this. So the first advice I would like to give you is, first thing first, log into your routers, change your password, and like what Aditya said, start
I have
configuring
an
your own
example for
private
this.
network.
I have an
Private
example for
net.
this.
Yeah.
So there was a United States military base is one of the most secure places on earth. But a hacker was able to compromise a United States military base and steal a lot of confidential information. How? Because you have a network of routers across the base to provide Wi-Fi across the base. One single router default username and password for logging into the router settings had not been changed. So all the hacker had to do is find the network, the make of that router, find the default credentials, log in, and he was inside the network.
Yep.
So this is why it's very important. You can have multiple millions of dollars of cybersecurity equipment, hardware, software protecting you. But if you forget to change your login credentials from admin or admin and password, it's all out the window.
So I believe, Adi, there is, remember we were talking about convenience. So password house, choosing an easy password is also now becoming convenience. So you won't forget.
Yes.
Passwords are dead.
We have
Passwords
one
are
more
dead, yeah.
question from, one last question. I will take this question from by one of our viewers, Semran. So the question was, how about encrypted hard drive? We forget to back up and then re-image the hard drive. Is it is there any possible to recover the data if you probably lose the encryption? Or I think that was what the question was.
No, I'm trying to figure out, did he mean he loses the hard disk or he forgets? That's
He said
this is
he
what I'm not clear
encrypted
about.
hard drive, but then he forgot to back up and then he re-imaged it.
Okay.
So is there a possibility he can recover the data?
Simran, my advice to you, forget about your data.
Simran, that's your answer. So don't forget your encryption key. Now, I'm going to conclude. Before I conclude this session, thank you, Vinesha and Aditya. Now, just to for all our support given by our viewers, I'm going to hand over to Aditya before I do the closing to brief about the upcoming Rochester reInvent virtual cybersecurity scheduled to happen next week, I believe, Aditya, over a course of 3 days.
Yep.
And so, Aditya, probably you can give some insights on that.
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much, guys, for attending this webinar and making it a lot more interesting with your interesting questions. Now, what we're doing is next week, we're having a 3-day conference that deals with a lot of cybersecurity issues when it comes to IoT and very specifically to our current scenario. Right now, if you look at it, the world is going through a complete overhaul when it comes to working. You have a huge uprising in satellite offices, decentralized offices. Companies no longer are requiring centralized workspaces from which they have to work out of. If you look at it, Twitter has said all employees can work from home permanently. So now this is going to throw up a whole host of challenges because most organizations spend lots of money to secure their office spaces and their office networks. Now, how do you start implementing cybersecurity standards and you have people working from their own homes, and they're not behind a secure network. So this is just one of the topics. The overall theme is evolving landscape of cybersecurity for a post-COVID-19 world. So it's a 3-day conference. We have a global panel of about 20 speakers from around the world who are going to be sharing their insights. Tickets are completely free. If you can scan that, the first 150 participants get free tickets to the conference. It's a 3-day conference. 150 free passes we're giving you as long as you are one of the first 150 to register for the conference. It starts on 25th and ends on 27th. We're going to have, again, as I said, expert panels talking about the changing, evolving fields of cybersecurity and IoT post COVID-19.
Great to be part of it. So to all the viewers out there, please feel free to scan the QR code, which is been displayed on the screen. It's only limited to the first 150, and I believe it is only valid today, or probably the first 150. So thank you to our distinguished panelists, and I would like to do the closing. So now we have heard many perspectives in terms of having to secure the connected world, even though it's gaining a popularity. But I want to leave this a message for you. Now, connected devices are going to be here. They're going to keep growing, and they're going to stay a while. Okay, it's going to be long, and with this, there's so much to consider. So proactively addressing these challenges and adopting new approaches with very clear strategy will be important for organization. Doesn't matter if the organization is small, big, government organization, private organization, or even personal consumers like home. Policymakers and associated regulatory bodies play a very important role in helping shape this world of secure connected world. Now, in our hyper-connected world, Internet of Things is going to transform the way we work. So that's going to happen. So with that, I will leave you with a question to think about: how do you secure this connected device? And thank you very much. Please do like our Upbeat Copy Training Facebook page to stay tuned for upcoming series of in other areas as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you. Thank you, Anand.
Look forward to catch you all soon. Thank you very much. Good night, guys, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.